Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel for another Payday 3 news update where we're going to be doing a breakdown of dev blog number 10. And apparently it won't just be the only thing that has a breakdown because I'm probably going to have one as well. If you've seen the title and thumbnail, you'll know I'm not best pleased with this blog. And I've talked about it in my Discord, I've talked about it with a couple of partners, and I've just tried to get an overall feeling to make sure I'm not crazy and reading through this and feeling like everything here is bad. But I'm going to be honest with you, pretty much everything here is bad. I'm just going to put it out front. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read through and summarize this post because it is very wordy. There's a lot of interview stuff here with Mio, the game director. And I don't know about you, but like for my content and also for the sake of how I deliver this, I'm getting really tired of just reading out interview questions. So what I'm going to do is just summarize the key points as we're going along and focus on the stuff that matters most. So let's do it. This blog post is all about the loud modifiers and how they're going to help combat difficulty. Now, right off the bat, I did predict a couple of weeks ago, and as much as I hate to be the one who says I told you so, I had a bad feeling that loud modifiers were not going to amend the problems with the game's difficulty, and everything about this blog post proves that unfortunately I was absolutely bang on the money. In this interview, Mio talks first off about modifiers for loud gameplay being the first thing they want to do to try and combat the game being too easy. That's fair. Saying it's not the only thing is a very good first step. There needs to be other things you do. However, are there any comments about nerfing adrenaline or fortitude, anything that would actually make the game a little bit more like it was pre-update 5 and adding new features that don't just break the game? No, they're adding loud modifiers on very hard and overkill and hoping that'll do enough for now. And they said they're going to wait for a while afterwards before they actually try and touch any of the statistics on those skills because they want to see how people respond to the modifiers. The problem is these modifiers don't add difficulty to the game, they add nuisances. That's what these do. There's a couple in here I will give credit to that are good. For example, one of the loud modifiers, and as I've said, bear in mind, these will only pop up on very hard and overkill, is buddy system. I really like this one because it increases the amount of specials that can spawn and increases the special cap. That's a good way to make the game harder. I like that. However, you've got other ones like regular SWAT units being replaced with heavy SWAT or reflector shields, which is just them bringing back the martial shields from Payday 2, which, unless I'm confused, people didn't like. It was a flashbang on a shield that was one of those unnecessary combinations, and it was something Payday 2 got a lot of criticism for towards the end, where instead of adding any new interesting enemies, they just went, let's smush things together and hope people like them. And so they're adding shields that have a flashbang, and it's like, well, either look away or kill the shield. That's just a nuisance. Let's just break these down one by one and actually go through them and talk them through to begin with. This is the most important thing I want to focus on. So, 6 loud modifiers coming in a future update, not the next one we're getting in the next week or so. But here's what we've got. First off, hard bargain. Players can't leave custody without hostage trades. Getting a player out of custody costs 1 hostage, plus 1 additional hostage for each time they've been in custody or have killed a civilian. That could become problematic quickly, and I don't know how much I like that, because the timer worked better in Payday 2 anyway. This as a concept is not terrible. I don't hate this. They do say they may change numbers, and I think they should do that, because trading hostages to get players out does make sense for high difficulties. It's how Payday 2 worked, and it is a sign that they are, going back to Payday 2 features to make the game better. This one I don't have a big problem with. I just think the 1 additional hostage for each time they've been in custody could be a problem, because hostages have too many uses at that point. Either they're used to get extra time before the assault starts, or they're used to trade resources, which are desperately needed in a game where you need to rely on them to keep playing, because Payday 3 is obsessed with forcing you to finish a heist as soon as possible, which just isn't fun compared to Payday 2's logic. So then adding in an extra thing where you have to save up so many civilians to trade people is not a good thing. So 1 to trade a player, fine. Add a timer on top of that. Don't add extra hostages. Terrible idea. Buddy system, as I've said, I like that one. No problems with it. Armor piercing, 10% of damage law enforcement deals to armor is also applied to health. I mean, it just puts even more stress on. As I said, I don't feel as though some of these mechanics are the best way to make the game harder as opposed to making it more of a nuisance, because as I've said, they're forcing you to complete heists as fast as possible. Added fortitude and adrenaline and basically gone, we've made the game too easy, how are we going to combat that? Instead of actually combating fortitude and adrenaline, which Mio does say at one point in this blog, they are going to allow taser and cloaker damage to remove adrenaline faster, either double or triple the rate. That's good. Things like that help combat the thing that's made the game too easy. But leaving the changes that you've done really powerful and then hoping that another thing that's completely separate will then address it is not a fix. It's a band-aid patch that doesn't really serve to make the game any better other than just add a bit of a nuisance to the game. I'm going to say nuisance a lot because that's the vibe. This whole blog post unfortunately feels like a nuisance, and to me, with all the respect in the world to developers, it comes across as we're just trying whatever works and we're going to hope that it fits. No, actually address the things that you've made too easy by dialing them back. I can get being too scared of fiddling with stats, but sometimes you just got to take the plunge sponge and try and reduce things a bit so that people will respond better. I mean, they didn't even think through fortitude and the adrenaline enough to stop you from taking fall damage when you go fall through the roof of Golden Shark. If you fall through with adrenaline, you don't die because you're capped to only take 100 health damage because that was the max health and the game never anticipated for you to have more health than that. They didn't even think that through. So while they have good intention in trying to make the game better, I don't think they're going about it in the right way. These are very much band-aid fixes. And the thing I was trying to make clear but didn't successfully do as I'm watching this back in the edit is that I'm saying that a lot of the modifiers for loud can make the game more challenging, but some of them will just make you want to finish a heist faster. The problem with Payday 3 is not that the heist needs to be finished faster. If anything, they need to take longer. We need to have more freedom to play for as long as we want. But some of these, rather than allowing the game to not be quite as easy as it is, it's making it harder in the wrong way so you're finished even faster, but combat's still really easy to engage with. It solves the wrong problem. Replacing regular SWAT with heavy SWAT doesn't really make much of a difference. I know Mio says heavy SWAT considered a noticeable difficulty spike. I don't really think that that's the case. Is that just me? I mean, I look at them with a bit of extra armor on and still kill them the exact same way. I don't know. But saying you can and should still play fast. With more time that passes, the more that annoys me, that the idea that you have to time your fun in the game and you have to get out as fast as possible. In Payday 2, half the fun was you could screw around. And if an objective took 10 minutes to do because you were screwing around too much, it didn't harm you. You know, it made the game more fun, if anything. The idea you've got to rush out, I still don't like it, and you're never going to convince me otherwise. Same with reflector shields, as I've already said, but then debilitating specials, players disabled by zappers and cloakers, damaged by nader gas, or hit by shield and dozer melee attacks will lose any stack of edge, grit, and rush. Again, nuisance. It's just a nuisance. Now, this is just personal opinion, and I will say I've seen people on Reddit and Twitter saying that they like it. Some of that could be copium, but if you do actually like it, fair enough. I don't want to devalue your opinion. To me, all of these just seem like ways to try and treat a problem that isn't there. The problem is that fortitude and adrenaline are too powerful, and cutting shot in particular, that skill has made the game too easy. But that is a whole other beast. So let's scroll up and look at cutting shot, because that is something that I'm really not impressed with. If you don't already know, they buffed cutting shot, which is a skill that allows you to have increased armor penetration as long as you have edge active. But what they've done in Update 5 patch was that they increased armor penetration from 0.1 or 10% to 0.5 or 50%, and that reduced the number of bullets you need to fire to get headshot kills or body kills on most enemies with most guns. You only have to look at the Payday wiki to see how wild the stats are now and how many guns have less bullets required to get those kills. To me, the most logical thing would be to say, do you know what, we buffed this skill, it was a mistake, we're undoing it. Much like with Armor Up, they added a skill in that allows you to get 2 plates for every one that you pick up, and they went, that's too powerful, we'll undo it. And while I wasn't the biggest fan of that nerf, it did make sense. Why not just do that again? I really don't understand why they've not. Mio then says they don't want to just shuffle the problem around. They don't want to limit it to optic sights or aim down sights because they don't feel it solves the problem, it only shuffles it around. So what's their solution? They shuffle it around to a different skill, because now they're going to have the high grain skill in Ammo Specialist. Rather than give you 20% extra damage for picking up ammo, you get 30 seconds of this increased armor penetration. At no point does it say that they're going to reduce that penetration. It will just give you that same penetration, that same power boost from cutting shot, for instead losing an ammo bag. That just makes it more of a nuisance to get the skill, but people will still do it. Either they'll make the extra effort to go there, or they won't bother with it, instead of actually giving people that reduced armor penetration. You are just shuffling the problem around still. You're not addressing it. You're just going, screw it, put another skill, people won't notice. But the thing is, if people want to make the effort to get that skill, a problem that is inherent with all of Payday 3's skill system is that it's the exact same way to get it. You just put 1 point in the base skill of that line, and then 1 point in the skill that you want. Payday 3's skill system is becoming more and more clear that it's just too easy to get some of these skills. If you want to make people specialize in certain things, you've got to make it harder to unlock some of these skills, because realistically, it's too easy to just pick the things you want, and so if you move something around, it's just as easy to get it later in a different skill, and it's what infuriates me, because if this skill made the game too easy, to the point where one of the mods, Emma on Mod Workshop, literally put out a mod for people to undo it if they wanted to literally nerf their own game because the buff was too powerful, then this is not going to combat that. Tell people you're putting it back down to the 0.1 and I'm sure you get no complaints, but instead of actually fixing the core problem, much like with Fortitude and with the Adrenaline, they're just moving it over and hoping something else will compensate, and it doesn't do that. It's a terrible idea. But on top of that, we've also got the confirmation from Mio that they are working on another difficulty for the game. If anything was the one thing I didn't want to hear right now, that was it. Mio does say, in his defense, that they aren't going to add another new difficulty to Payday 3 until at least year 1 has ended. The problem is, that's about 4 months away now, 4 or 5 months. It's not that far away. And what terrifies me with this, and I've said it from the get-go, is the second they add a new difficulty, it doesn't matter what they say about, oh, we want to make sure it's not just changing the balance of the health and damage that the enemies deal. As soon as you add one difficulty, you open the door then to just keep adding more if you have problems. And I'm not being funny. This is the worst time to even say you're considering that. You could have kept that quiet and talked about it after year 1, but instead you mention it now. And to me, whether it was intentional or not, and it may well have not been intentional, that's fair, it comes across as, we know this is probably not going to work, we've got a backup plan, we'll add a new difficulty, that'll solve all the problems. No, overkill is described in the game as meant to be a gripping challenge for players, something that people with a well-coordinated team can beat. Instead, people who've played the game for a couple of hours can do it with their eyes closed and a hand tied behind their back. This is not an actual addressable fix, it is a band-aid that doesn't address the problem. Blood pressure's rising, here we go, woohoo. I'm sorry, by the way, if this is your first video you're watching of me for Payday 3, I do normally try and be as balanced as I can with this, but this blog post has literally nothing for me to be positive about, and it's infuriating. Because in most things recently, when there's been a problem, there's also been good things, and I've tried to steer it on the good things and said the bad things could use with addressing, and nothing here is good. Nothing here has me excited. Nothing here has me think, oh, this is a really good fix for the game. This is, hey, so we know we made the game too easy. Let's just kind of ignore the main problem and hope that if we add these things in, it'll make a difference. But just the fact that they say, again, it's actually in the same section, that they don't want to address adrenaline and fortitude until loud modifiers have been released. Mio seems to think, or the game company generally seems to think, and I say this with all the respect in the world to Mio, it can't be an easy job to be a game director, and I really do acknowledge that. There seems to be this feeling in everyone's heads that as soon as you add these loud modifiers, you might just fix the problem. You won't. You'll either stop people from playing the game, the people who are still playing it, and there ain't many at this point because you've made it too much of a nuisance to play, or people will still work around it, but the game will still be too easy. This is not something to rely on, and ever since they did that early dev build stream and Mio said, we're adding loud modifiers, that'll combat the difficulty, I knew it would end up like this. It may well turn out in execution this goes very differently. I'm not even for a second going to deny that fact, it could well occur. But you cannot seriously tell me from reading this that it really sounds like that's going to be the case. It sounds like they're adding a few extra things in to try and make it harder, and a couple of them, like I said, work. Buddy system, something like that is brilliant. But anything else, you're just either making the game a little bit more annoying to play or just outright not fixing the problem and adding something that might make it harder, but effectively, to anyone who's gotten used to the game, which they have, is not going to be any kind of a problem. Mio literally says earlier in this article that Payday 3 is a game that kind of defies the meta of most games, where it's easy to get used to but hard to master, whereas Payday 3 is hard to get used to, but once you've played it for a few hours, it's easy to master. That applies here with some of these modifiers. Because it's so easy to master, little tweaks like making regular SWAT heavy SWAT don't make the change that you're hoping they will. This whole post is just full of contradictions and things that I don't think will work. And that's why I am generally so very disappointed for this. I'm so disappointed. And again, just the idea of another difficulty, man, I'm not going there again. I'm not going there again. There is more information you can read here for some of the logic behind the choices, but as I've said, it mainly is summed up by the things I've put out here. And if you're wondering about stealth modifiers, Mio does say that 2 new ones will be coming with the loud modifiers. Hopefully those will be better. I do think the stealth modifiers are actually quite good for the game, but these loud modifiers are just a swing and a miss, honestly, for me personally. Either way, whenever these drop, we will talk about them in more detail and see if they actually have the effect people intend. But they do say next week in Devblog 11, they'll talk about the free LMG joining the Payday 3 arsenal. Doesn't say when it'll come out. Of course it doesn't, because it doesn't say where these modifiers are coming out. I don't know what update they'll be in. I mean, we know we've got the next update coming in a week or two. There's going to be a very mid update. I've talked about that already. The one afterwards will either probably come end of May, early June. I really hope for everything that is good for Starbreeze that it contains a heist, whether it's the free one or Boys in Blue. It's getting to the point now where the lack of new content and the amount of stuff that's just so easy to get annoyed by or just ignore is getting hard to bear. And with there being nearly 6 months without a new heist, it's getting very irritating. So I apologise sincerely. I really do, because obviously I have to deliver the news. It's what I do on this channel, and I wouldn't want to skip something because I don't like it. But I am well aware that I try and be the most positive person I possibly can, and in this video I am not achieving it in the slightest, and I do sincerely apologise for that. So, you know, I might get some flack from people saying that I'm being too negative on it, and if I do, so be it. I will take it on the chin. But as far as I'm concerned, as someone who's played this game, who at least understands what's made Payday good over the last 10 years, this feels like a complete just backfire on that, as Payday 3 does in a whole in a lot of ways, to be honest. As I said, I talked about it with members of my community and some fellow partners, so I know I'm not alone in the opinion, but I know my opinion will not be the only one. I'm fully aware of that. And if you disagree with me, please do let me know in the comment section below. I ask only that you be respectful and tell me why you think, with some actual constructive criticism, why you think maybe I'm overanalyzing it. But if you agree, again, also tell me. I'll leave this video here. Thank you very much for watching. I really do apologise for how negative this is. I know I shouldn't have to apologise because it's just me giving my opinions, but I genuinely am someone who thrives on always finding the good in things. It's something that I love dearly, and I don't like focusing on the bad in life because it just stresses me out, and I don't like that anxiety in my life. So I really apologise if that energy's come across. Either way, I'm leaving it here. Thank you all for watching. I'll see you all next week with some more content, hopefully for the new game update. But until then, look after yourselves, stay safe, have a good weekend. I'll see you all in the next one.